There's some running backs out there I just feel you're being lied to about. Everyone is so worried about the next man up. But what if some of these guys actually suck? We crunch the numbers, and these guys just aren't it. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone is doing well out there today, because we are absolutely going to piss those people off who read titles and then scroll through videos just to look at graphics to see what players are included. Now, hopefully that is not you, because I want to reward someone who's actually listening and learning something today. So what I have done is hidden 5 letters or numbers on the screen throughout this video. If you put those 5 characters together in the order that they show up on the screen, it makes a promo code for a free draft guide. The first 2 people to enter the correct code at checkout will get their guide for free. Just head over to tfhdraftguide.com and be one of the first ones to enter that promo code. Now, if you struggle at tests like this and you're like, listen, Jake, I just need a guide. I want all the answers to the draft day test. You can head over to tfhdraftguide.com as well and get your guide right now. It's already live. It's going to be added to and updated all the way up until week 1 of the NFL season. Okay, so who and what are we going to be talking about here today? Now, I'm sure you've heard at times that there is worry about certain starting running backs in the NFL because of the guy who is behind them on the depth chart. But if that guy next up on the depth chart kind of sucks, do we really need to worry about it? Now, in order for a backup running back to make any noise, they need to be uber efficient with their touches. They need to really show out in those limited amount of touches so they can earn more volume. Well, if they have sucked in per touch metrics over their career, do we really have to worry about them earning more touches? Now, I don't think most NFL offensive coordinators continue to give the ball to dudes who just don't go anywhere. Not every offensive coordinator sucks like Arthur Smith. So I went through and looked for backup running backs who averaged under 4 yards per carry and under 5 yards per touch. If a player is under in both of those thresholds, the chance of them earning some large role isn't as likely without some sort of an injury. And I think we can all agree that if you're under 4 yards per carry and 5 yards per touch, you ain't really doing much on the NFL field. So I went through all the backup running backs in the NFL, and there were 6 of them that were under both 4 yards per carry and 5 yards per target. The first one was Jaylen Wright of the Miami Dolphins, and you may want to watch the screen for the first discount letter. Not saying, just saying. Now, when we look at Jaylen Wright, we see he's averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Not very good. But then 3.6 yards per touch? How does that number even go down? Yards per touch includes receptions, and it's easier to get bulk yardage in the receiving game. So the fact that his yards per touch is lower than his yards per carry tells me we are not worried about the pass catching upside of Jaylen Wright. Now, I got to admit, coming into the 2024 season, I thought Wright had some sleeper potential. I just didn't know if we could count on the health of Devon Achane for a full season. Well, we not only saw a healthy Achane all year, but what we saw of Wright was underwhelming at best. I mentioned earlier how his yards per touch was lower than his yards per carry, and that's because he only averaged 2.7 yards per reception. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, Jake, but he wasn't overly involved in the passing game, and you are correct. He only got 6 targets, but dude dropped 2 of them. And on the 68 carries that he saw on the year, he was stuffed at or behind the line of scrimmage 22 times. Almost 1/3 of his carries resulted in 0 yardage. Now, on top of that, he couldn't even outproduce an aging and less than 100% healthy Raheem Mostert. Now, while Jaylen Wright may have added muscle and some potential here entering year 2, his 2024 tape shows inefficiencies, missed chances, lack of big plays, and limited trust from coaches. They even brought in Alexander Mattison this offseason to challenge for the backup role. That is not something you would do if you had complete faith in your young backup running back. Now, the next player may surprise you. It's Brilan Allen of the New York Jets. He averaged 3.6 yards per carry, well below the 4 mark that we were looking for, and then only 4.3 yards per touch when we took into account receptions. Now, there has been a lot of talk about Allen ever since we heard new head coach Aaron Glenn say they're going to see a little bit more of a committee-style backfield in New York. And then people remember what Allen was in college at Wisconsin, and they immediately think he's just going to take the job from Breece Hall. But is Allen really that good? Discount letter. Anyway, he had over 100 touches in 2024 and averaged only 4.3 yards per touch, well below the 5 number that we're looking for. That number is bound to be low, with him averaging only 3.6 yards per carry though. He also had 4 drops on just 27 targets. He wasn't a home run hitter. He only had 1 carry of at least 15 yards on 92 carries. He wasn't creating yardage either. He wasn't evading tackles, and he only broke 1 tackle every 23 carries. Now, we have a new quarterback in New York as well in Justin Fields, a quarterback known for doing what? Yes, using his feet. So not only do we have a split backfield, but we have a quarterback that's going to call his own number from time to time. Now, Allen's rookie year showed modest power, but underwhelming efficiency, limited catches, and he's battling for snaps in a committee system. Without a huge step forward in efficiency when it comes to yards per carry, his passing game impact, or volume, he's just a role player or rotational back in 2025, not some stud that's going to push Breece Hall out of the way. Then we have Zack Moss of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's averaged 3.3 yards per carry and 4.4 yards per touch. Now, once again, people are talking about Zack Moss, and I don't know why. The dude just isn't that good. I'm sorry, but 3.3 yards per carry and 4.4 yards per touch is not exciting anyone. He ranks outside the top 50 running backs in juke rate, evaded tackles, and only had 2 carries of at least 15 yards over 74 carries last year. We know the Bengals' offensive line is not good. They need a shifty and explosive runner in the backfield if they're going to find success in the running game. That is why Chase Brown is so good. Now, Moss has never been healthy for a full season. He's a below average pass blocker, and the Cincinnati defense is going to be giving up points all over the place. They don't need some slow plotter. They need to throw the ball a ton and get the ball in the hands of Chase Brown on the outside. They also need another discount letter. But with limited pass game upside behind a more explosive back in Chase Brown, still surrounded by other younger running backs, Moss will struggle to maintain any volume, efficiency, or relevance in both the NFL and in fantasy football. Now, how about in Chicago? Roshan Johnson of the Bears averaged 2.7 yards per carry and 3.6 yards per touch. That is disgustingly low on both accounts. And now I get that people hate DeAndre Swift, but Roshan Johnson isn't exactly nipping at his cleats for more volume. Last year's 2.7 yards per carry and 3.6 yards per touch did him no favors. His play in 2024 only got him a lesser role than what he had in 2023. In 55 attempts, he had no runs of at least 10 yards. He's an old regime back that lacks the big play upside that head coach Ben Johnson is going to look for in this offense. Then they also went out and drafted Kyle Monangai in the 7th round. And for those of you wondering, no, I'm not worried about a 7th round running back either. Those guys very rarely work out. Now, what I am worried about is the next discount letter. But despite flashes as a physical goal line back, Johnson's inefficient rushing production, lack of explosiveness, minimal pass game role, and overshadowed backfield status all point to another limited season. Expect him to serve situationally, but not as a reliable feature option. Another popular name is Blake Cororm of the Los Angeles Rams. Last year, 3.6 yards per carry and 4.1 yards per touch. Now, Kyren Williams may be one of the most disrespected running backs in the NFL. It doesn't matter what he does, he's always about to lose his job in the eyes of other people. The same thing happened last year when LA drafted Blake Cororm out of Michigan. Then Cororm went out and averaged 3.6 yards per carry and 4.1 yards per touch, had 0 carries of at least 12 yards or more, broke 0 tackles, and 11 of his 58 carries were stuffed at or behind the line of scrimmage. But on top of all that, he's just another below average blocker in the passing game. Cororm is a low efficiency guy that may end up losing reps to newly drafted running back Jarquez Hunter, but the fact remains this is still Kyren Williams' backfield for at least one more discount letter. For at least one more year. Now sure, 2026 may be something completely different in the backfield of LA, but for right now, I'm not worried about Blake Cororm or Jarquez Hunter taking the job away from Kyren Williams. But I also want to mention Kareem Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs. 3.6 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per touch, and this one really shouldn't surprise a lot of people. Hunt has been under 4 yards per carry and under 5 yards per touch for the last 3 straight seasons. In 200 carries last year, he only had 3 runs of at least 15 yards. Hunt ranked damn near the bottom in yards before contact at 2.0 and in yards after contact at 1.6. He was also outside the top 30 running backs in yards created per touch, evaded tackles, and fantasy points per game. He also found himself stuffed behind or at the line of scrimmage 32 times just last year. You gotta remember that Hunt didn't challenge Pacheco for touches last year. He got the volume due to injuries alone. With a healthy Pacheco in 2025, Kareem Hunt should be a non-issue. So stop overhyping these guys just because they're the next man up on the depth chart. Efficiency matters in this game, and these dudes, just not efficient.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headline Nation, we running the game.